Good evening, viewers. Welcome to Climate Youth News at COP. We bring you news from the 27th World Climate Change Conference in Egypt and provide you with the most important information of the day, the latest developments and voices from the field. We start with a first contribution on the topic of the day.
Hi, my name is Moses Sekians from Kampala, Uganda. I'm happy to hear that leaders at COP27 choose to give a standalone day to engage youth in discussions and negotiations at COP27, which is a good idea because most of these youth have been on the front line of climate crisis seeking for climate justice. I want to remind world leaders at COP27 that youth didn't go to Egypt as tourists. They went to tell their stories and what they have discovered while on the front lines. Therefore, we should give them microphones. You never know what they have to say could bring about change and saving our Mother Earth. Let's not only talk about issues, let's act. And the world leaders should know that youth, we are fighting for what is ours and what will be ours in the next years or in the future. According to UN, there is over 1.2 billion youth in the world and over 1.9 billion children in the world. And you may find that even the biggest percentage of this population is not counted. Now imagine a situation when this population and the children they will give birth to have nowhere to stay. When our one and only planet Earth is completely distracted. When we breathe in carbon dioxide instead of oxygen. When we can't grow crops anymore. For continents like Africa that depend on agriculture, it will mean death. When we have nothing to do about floods and its effects, and many more other issues that may rise from rampant climate change. Climate crisis is real and it is already lobbying our future. And that's why youth are acting like adults to think about solutions and save our future. It is not justice for our rivers to be polluted. It's not justice for our lakes, for our land to be polluted. It's not justice for our air to be polluted. It's not justice for the biggest world polluters to be untouchable. Is it justice when the loss and damage finance becomes a promise? The attitudes of business owners, employees, consumers and the general public require change in order to reduce emissions, decrease temperatures and truly reverse the centuries of damages we have caused in order to replenish our planet's life and protect the sources for survival. Let's take action to help reverse the negative impacts of climate change and replenish and protect our planet. All this starts today.
After this brief overview, we can now dive deeper into the COP. The following article is on what happened today.
Day 5 of COP27. The negotiations are progressing. Just in this moment, a first informal consultation on funding agreements for loss and damages is coming to an end, and the first small agenda items have even been closed altogether. The topics of the day were youth and future generations, science and human rights.
The first ever Children and Youth Pavilion has opened at COP this week. As climate change is disproportionately affecting young people, the Children and Youth constituency to UNFCCC, called YOUNGO, sees the pavilion as an important step to have their voices heard. Still, they note that young expertise needs to be integrated in all spaces, including the negotiations, and not sidelined in its own bubble. Framed by the Youth Focus Day, the advisory board of the initiative Youth of a Country had its first meeting. The joint cooperation between Egypt and the United Nations aims to empower young people and strengthen participation in different sectors, such as education, employment and entrepreneurship. Throughout the day, several youth-led events took place, addressing young perspectives on loss and damage, mitigation and just transition.
Civil society has started putting up crucial pressure via protest actions on the issues of human rights, climate justice and fossil fuel phase-out. Many observers were dressed in white today, honoring the rights of environmental defenders and political prisoners. The Women and Gender constituency of the UNFCCC had initiated this solidarity action endorsed by many Egyptian human rights organizations. Instead of white shirts, yellow crosses could be spotted at the conference yesterday. They symbolize the struggle around the village Lützerath that the German government is currently evicting so that the company RWE can extract coal. Climate justice activists also called on fossil fuel lobbyists and other polluters to be expelled from the conference.
These actions call out greenwashing, which remains a big problem at COP. A new report shows that more than 600 fossil fuel lobbyists are attending the climate conference, more than ever. They are even majorly represented in party delegations, such as UAE and Russia. Philip Yakpour from Public Participation Africa put it bluntly: if you want to address malaria, you don't invite the mosquitoes. The new Global Witness report stated that greenhouse emissions of oil and gas projects are often 3 times as high as producers claim. A new UN initiative aims to draw a red line around greenwashing concerning net zero strategies. It sets out a roadmap to ensure that net zero commitments of companies, cities, and regions are credible and ambitious. According to the initiative, companies shall not claim to be net zero while they support the exploration of fossil fuels, deforestation, or lobby against climate action.
The Fossil of the Day was awarded to Japan yesterday. The Fossil of the Day is a negative award handed out by the Climate Action Network International to point out the worst performance of countries at COP. Japan invested $10.6 billion in fossil fuels last year, despite a consensus that no more fossil investments should be made to meet climate targets. In addition, they are lobbying other countries to greenwash coal.
Last but not least, we received concerns about the logistical situation on the ground, worrying that a lack of sufficient food and infrastructure for participants could also impact the outcomes of COP. Please, take care everyone.
We have already learned a lot about the COP. We now switch to our editorial team on site, which is coming up with an exciting interview. Dear editors, who have you brought in with you this time?
What is climate finance?
So there are not very clearly agreed definitions of what constitutes climate finance and what doesn't. But generally speaking, it's finances mobilized by global north countries to pay for climate adaptation and climate mitigation projects in the global south.
And what are the problems of climate finance?
So as I mentioned, there are not very clearly agreed definitions of what constitutes finance and what doesn't. So there's a lot of disagreement on how much finance has actually been raised or not. So, and also, this is also because that there's some issues with the reporting system. So there's a lot of opportunity for over-reporting and mislabeling of projects and double counting of resources.
And what are your core demands for climate finance at COP27?
So I would say one of the key demands that developing countries have put forward at COP27 is the demand for finance to cover loss and damage. This is something that has been discussed a lot today, and it seems like that's that's something they really want to get out of COP27, and they're not willing to leave without some progress on this issue.
Amazing, thank you.
You see, that's really something else when you hear something like this directly from the ground. We want to continue with this and pass the microphone on to activists on the ground.
Yeah, I'm Makai van Boy. I'm the national president of the Catholic youth organization CYO Sierra Leone, which is an affiliate of FIMCAP, which is the umbrella Catholic youth organization officially recognized by the Holy See. So I'm here at COP. This is my first COP to represent young people from the global south and indeed all the world. Indeed, this is my first COP, like I said, but I really feel, to be honest, that some of my expectations, my biggest expectation, have not been met, particularly with the issue of youth representation in the big rooms where the world leaders are. I feel that it is limited, and we are going to be here for the most part. Most of these big leaders, once they deliver their speeches and they go back home, but we will be here from the beginning to the end. And then we're not in these big rooms where these decisions are being made, and some of this agreement they are signing up to will go on for 20 years and more. Most of them who are signing these agreements will be dead and gone by then, unfortunately. So we will be leaving behind to take care of the mess they will create, which we are not really responsible for. So for me, I'm a little bit disappointed because of that. But we would not stop at this point. We will continue to put our voices together, to unify around our desires, and to really push them to express the desires that we all share. So it is my biggest hope that in the next COPs, in the coming COPs, there will be more spaces available for young people to be included into these negotiations, and our concerns, our wishes, our hopes and desires will be included to reflect these decisions they are making, this big agreement they are signing, because the world they are going to leave behind will be our world, not theirs, our world, so that we can have a world where all manner of life is possible. And one of my biggest fears is that we as young people, we care about what the actions that they make, because most young people, they imitate what they see others do around. That is how we learn as we go on with the rest of our lives. Sometimes when we see them do one thing we think is right, and we copy it, and we try to replicate that to the future generations, from one generation to the other generation. But now they are saying one thing and they are doing the complete opposite on the other hand. So that's our fear as young people who are leading on this stage, representing our voices. So the example they are living, I feel that is bad. So I think there's a big hypocrisy around all that. So like I said earlier, we're not here to just make fancy pictures or to fly in these big airplanes, but we are really here because it matters. This is environmental issues, it matters, and this is going to lead on from one generation to the other. So I feel that we cannot afford that hypocrisy to just wear nice suits and do fancy pictures, but we want our voices to be heard, and we want action, and we want it now. But again, yes, as young people, we have been challenged to prefer solutions, alternatives, how we can do better with our energy crisis. So I want to say that to all the young people who are not here, that we need the education, we need the education, we need the education, we need the education needed to put into work the technology that is required to be able to use it, to implement it, and to bring green energy into our industries, into our countries, and make our cities greener and even our lives better from one generation now to the next. So I want to encourage everyone to not lose hope, but to do the tiny bits of things that we have started, and we will still continue to push so that our planet can be safe and Mother Earth will be a better place where all manner of life is possible. Thank you very much. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for this important and powerful perspective. The heat is turning up at COP now. The vibe is driven by the protest actions, however, within a rather difficult and repressive atmosphere. Since tomorrow will be all about decarbonization, we expect more news and look forward to sharing it with you here. This was today's Climate Youth News broadcast from COP27 in Egypt. Feel free to stay for a live Q&A session with Ukrainian activist el-Sheikh and tune in again tomorrow for Climate Youth News. Bye!